Hi, everyone. So this week we're going to talk about the Industrial Revolution. Now, the thing about this is I want to make sure you remember that we're layering. This is the same time period that we're talking about, where we've got Reconstruction and the expansion of the American West starting in the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s. This is going to be happening at the same time. A little bit later, starting just after the Civil War, some of it before, but a lot of it right after the Civil War, and then growing from there. I also want you to keep in mind that this is a global phenomenon. This idea of industrial revolution happens all over the globe, and it happened in Great Britain starting in the 1840s. Lots of factories and that type of thing, and we were a little behind on that. But the United States was able to catch up and surpass Great Britain in many ways when it came to the Industrial Revolution. So there's a number of things that must be in place even today. So if you're a business major, listen up. There's a number of things that must be in place before a country can industrialize. And there are 6 things that economists and industrialists see as kind of must-haves, right? So the 6 must-haves. So there's 6 things that you must have before you can industrialize as a nation. Okay, so we're going to go through those 6 just so you have an idea of them. Your textbook talks about them, but kind of in a vague way. So I just want to clarify so you're watching out for these things. So again, this occurs anywhere, but a need for a stable government. You have to have a stable government if you're going to industrialize. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you have to have a stable government? Can you think about that for just a minute? Right, so it's this idea that if you have an unstable government, what happens to businesses? What can occur? Right, so if you're at war, businesses can be overrun and burned to the ground and those types of things. So you're not going to invest a lot of money into building a new factory that makes, women's slippers. If you're in a war or something like that, you're going to wait to do that until there's a stable government so your factories don't get burned down. Or if there's a hostile government or a coup where the government might take over a business or something like that. So you want to make sure that you have a stable government. So when does the United States get a stable government? Well, we hadn't had one for decades leading up to the Civil War. All sorts of trouble deciding between slave states and free states. Rapid expansion to the West, and what does that mean? Lots of conflict going on. So it's really not until the Civil War is ended before we really have a stable government where investors are going to feel good about starting new businesses and creating new factories. So for all countries, you have to have a stable government. The United States would get that stable government in the end of the Civil War. Okay. Now the second piece that everybody in the world has to have is natural resources. You've got to have abundant natural resources to be able to have that industry, have those factories and that type of thing. Now think about the things you learned last week about natural resources. Well, we start mining in the 1840s and 1850s, and it grows very quickly into commercial mining. So they're mining iron ore and copper and other materials like that that are going to help with the Industrial Revolution. So that's going to slide in and help have those resources available for those factories. You've got to have lots of cheap labor, people who are willing to accept low wages. And what happens in this time period, starting around the late 1870s, but especially the 1880s, 1890s, all the way through the 19 teens, and we'll talk about this next week, but we get millions of new immigrants that come to the United States. literally millions and millions of immigrants that come looking for work, willing to take lower pay because they don't have any option. They see this as a new opportunity. And so you have a lot of businesses that pay them really low wages because they can. And there's a lot of people. So when unemployment is really low, sometimes companies have a hard time finding people to fill jobs. When unemployment is real high, or you have a large population that comes in, you can pay lower wages and you can have more people working in the jobs. So you don't worry about safety and things like that. This chapter that you're reading is going to talk about the Knights of Labor and different labor unions that start in this time period as well, because they see these workers that are being treated poorly in unsafe working conditions. But this is one of those factors that's got to be there, those immigrants. And in the United States, this is going to start in the late 19th century. The fourth thing that you need here that you absolutely must have before you industrialize is markets. You've got to have people who will buy your goods. So really, we're talking about cities here, where you've got to have cities or communities that can afford to buy your stuff and need to buy your stuff. If people live on farms, sometimes they can be very independent. They can grow their own food. They can, make their own homes and that sort of thing. But if you're living in a city, you can't do any of those things. And so you're going to need to buy stuff. And you've also got a growth of cities in Europe going on at the same time. So these people who are industrializing in the cities of the United States have markets even in Europe to sell their goods to. Okay. The fifth thing that you absolutely must have is transportation, and I might even say infrastructure. Right. Transportation or infrastructure. Now think about this. You watched that slideshow where I talked about the railroads. They open up so many possibilities for trade here. They open up so many opportunities to get those raw materials from the west to the east, to get those finished goods from the east out to the west. Those communities north and south are able to get their goods from place to place. Think about Michigan and the industry there. So having that transportation network, that new infrastructure that has been supported by the government bought land, the government bought right away, the government got rid of the buffalo, the government got rid of the Native Americans to make those railroads have the opportunities to go. So government subsidies for new industries, growing industries, is a long history in the United States, and railroads were one of the biggest beneficiaries ever. But the United States, now from that other video that railroads start growing after the 1860s, and that's the infrastructure, that transportation that we needed. And the sixth and one of the most important pieces that, if it's missing, isn't going to work, is a strong agricultural base. An agricultural base, right? So think about that. We learned last week about the Homestead Act, this expansion to the west. And on that earlier slide, you saw the massive growth of agriculture and farming that was going on, the millions of acres that doubled in this time period and tripled by the 1920s. Think about that. If you've got somebody growing food, then workers can live in the city and go to their jobs and work in the industry. If you don't have farmers growing enough food and able to transport it on the trains into those urban areas, then those urban areas aren't going to work. If you have to go and grow your own food, you're not going to be able to be in the factory all day. So they go together. The farmers, without the agricultural base, without the farmers, without that rural area, the urban areas couldn't survive, and that industry would never grow. So those 6 things are essential to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution anywhere obviously, but in the United States, it comes to a head in the mid to late 19th century with the end of the Civil War, with the expansion of mining and industry in the West, the immigration, mass immigration in the late 19th century, the growing markets in Europe and the new urban areas in the United States, which we'll talk about urbanization later, the growth of transportation with the railroads, and that massive agricultural base, in part because of the Homestead Act and the destruction of the Native Americans and their livelihoods. Okay, so this is an important understanding as you read through your chapters and you think about the growth of the industry in the United States and the world, but definitely in the United States. Okay, I hope this helps. Let me know if you have questions. Thanks.